Accutron had a problem. The technology that made it famous no longer existed. So how do you bring back a brand built on something that's gone forever? Accutron's answer would shock collectors all over again. Imagine reviving Ford without the V8, Gibson without the guitar, or Harley-Davidson without the motorcycle. That's essentially the challenge Accutron faced. The humming tuning fork that powered the original Accutron watches had disappeared from production decades ago. Collectors loved it, repair shops still serviced it, and vintage Spaceviews and Astronauts remained highly sought after. Yet the movement that built the brand belonged to another era. Most companies facing that situation would have played it safe. A few reissues, some vintage-inspired dials, and a marketing campaign built around nostalgia would have been the obvious path. Instead, Accutron did something far riskier. It attempted to reinvent itself using technology that had never existed before. To understand why that decision was so surprising, it's worth remembering what Accutron once represented. Today, many collectors think of Accutron as a beloved vintage watch brand. In the 1960s, however, it was one of the most technologically advanced names in the industry. When Bulova introduced the Accutron in 1960, it became the world's first fully electronic watch. Rather than relying on the traditional balance wheel that had regulated watches for centuries, it used a tiny tuning fork vibrating at 360 Hz. The result was remarkable. Accutron watches were more accurate than most mechanical watches of their era, and their distinctive hum became instantly recognizable. The technology found its way into aircraft instrumentation, military applications, railroad service, and equipment associated with the space race. At a time when most watchmakers were refining old ideas, Accutron was creating entirely new ones. Then, quartz arrived. The quartz revolution of the 1970s was swift and unforgiving. Watches suddenly became cheaper to produce, more accurate, and easier to manufacture. The tuning fork that had once represented the future became a stepping stone to something even newer. Production eventually stopped, and the Accutron name gradually faded from prominence. What didn't disappear was the enthusiasm surrounding the watches. Collectors continued seeking out vintage Spaceviews, Astronauts, and railroad-approved models long after production ended. The tuning fork movement became one of the most fascinating chapters in horological history, and the gentle hum of a running Accutron remained unlike anything else in watchmaking. That's why many enthusiasts expected a relaunch to focus entirely on recreating the past. Instead, Accutron surprised almost everyone. When Citizen relaunched Accutron as a standalone luxury brand in 2020, collectors anticipated a modern tuning fork revival. What they received was something entirely different. The flagship Spaceview 2020 introduced an electrostatic movement unlike anything else on the market. Two visible turbines positioned on the dial generate electrical energy through the motion of the wearer's wrist, powering what Accutron describes as the world's first electrostatic motor in a wristwatch. The watch doesn't contain a tuning fork, and it doesn't attempt to recreate the original movement. Rather than revisiting the technology that made Accutron famous, the company chose to pursue a completely different path. In many ways, that decision was more faithful to the original Accutron philosophy than any reissue could have been. The Spaceview 2020 immediately stood apart from nearly everything else on the market. Featuring a 43.5mm stainless steel case, sapphire crystal, and an open-worked dial that proudly displays its technology, it looked more like an engineering experiment than a traditional wristwatch. Accutron pushed the concept even further with the Spaceview DNA. Featuring a dramatic case design and highly visible movement architecture, the DNA embraced a futuristic aesthetic that divided opinion among collectors. Some loved its boldness, others wished for something more traditional. Either way, nobody accused it of being boring. For enthusiasts who preferred a stronger connection to the brand's history, Accutron introduced the Legacy Collection. Models such as the Astronaut, 261, and TV Watch borrow heavily from historic designs while utilizing modern Swiss automatic movements. These watches capture the appearance of the originals without requiring owners to maintain decades-old tuning fork technology. The legacy pieces celebrate Accutron's past, but the Spaceview models reveal something more interesting about the brand's future. Many collectors initially questioned whether these new watches were real Accutrons. After all, the tuning fork was gone, the hum was gone, the movement that made the brand famous had disappeared. The funny thing is that Accutron has now done the same thing twice. In 1960, it shocked the watch industry by abandoning the balance wheel. In 2020, it shocked collectors by refusing to bring the tuning fork back. Both decisions challenged convention, both decisions frustrated traditionalists, and both decisions reflected the same belief: progress matters more than nostalgia. That's why the modern Accutron story is more compelling than a simple comeback. The company wasn't built on a tuning fork. It wasn't built on the willingness to try something nobody else was doing. While many heritage brands spend decades recreating their greatest hits, Accutron chose to take another gamble. The tuning fork made Accutron famous. When it disappeared, many assumed Accutron would disappear with it. The surprise isn't that the brand came back. It's that it remembered what made it special in the first place: innovation. The hum was only the soundtrack.